If you've ever felt confused by someone who pulls away the second things get close, but then suddenly says one sentence that hits you straight in the gut, stop. Because that moment might be the one where everything changes. Avoidant partners are not emotionally loud. They don't confess their feelings in dramatic declarations. They don't do fairy tale speeches or post about you on Instagram. But there's a moment, a rare, raw, deeply disarming moment where an avoidant will say something so vulnerable, so uncharacteristically honest, it will stop you in your tracks. And if you hear it, it's not just another sentence. It's their version of "you're the one." And if you don't know how to spot that moment, you'll miss it. You'll overlook it. Or worse, you'll misinterpret it and sabotage something that was actually turning real. So in this video, I'm breaking it down, word by word, pattern by pattern, the exact signs to look for. Because if an avoidant says this, you better believe it means you've cracked their shell. When an avoidant partner says, "I don't usually say this, but you need to stop everything and pay attention," that sentence, often tossed out like a nervous disclaimer, isn't just filler. It's a window. It's a crack in the emotional armor. Avoidantly attached individuals are hardwired for protection. Their nervous system is constantly scanning for threats to their autonomy, and their history often taught them that emotional expression is unsafe, messy, or leads to abandonment or suffocation. So when they say something that begins with, "I don't usually say this," it's not just a casual phrase. It's an announcement. They are about to step outside their programming, even if only for a second. And if you miss the significance of that, you miss the whole damn moment. Avoidants don't pour out their hearts in grand gestures. They communicate in glimpses, in pauses, in the things they almost didn't say. That sentence signals the beginning of vulnerability, and if you're not grounded and present enough to receive it, the door they just cracked open will slam shut again. This phrase is often misunderstood. Many people hear, "I don't usually say this, but," and think it's a way to hedge emotion, as if the person is protecting themselves while still saying something halfway nice. And in a way, that's true. They are protecting themselves. But not because they don't mean what they're saying. It's because they mean it so much that their system is flooding with anxiety. For an avoidant, saying anything emotional is an act of defiance against their internal wiring. This sentence is them breaking their own rules. And in a relationship with an avoidant, these are the moments that matter most, not the over-the-top declarations or spontaneous "I love yous" you might be waiting for. This sentence is often the first sign that something real is shifting inside them. Let's go deeper. Avoidants often grow up in environments where emotions weren't welcomed, where closeness felt unsafe, or where expressing needs led to disappointment or punishment. So what did they learn? To become self-sufficient, to keep it all inside, to rely on no one. And in adult relationships, that wiring shows up as withdrawal, defensiveness, and fear of dependency. So when an avoidant reaches the point where they are on the verge of saying something real, maybe a compliment, maybe an acknowledgement of care, maybe even love, there's a war happening inside them. Part of them wants to shut it down, go quiet, run away. But the other part, the part that wants to be known, loved, and accepted, is fighting to speak. That battle is what gives birth to the phrase, "I don't usually say this, but..." That's not a red flag. That's a green light trying to turn itself on. If you're in a relationship with an avoidant and you hear this sentence, your job is not to push for more. Your job is to receive it. That doesn't mean you become passive or mute. It means you understand the magnitude of what just happened. You mirror their effort, not overpower it. You create safety by saying less and being more. You lean into the emotion of the moment instead of dissecting it. Because if you turn it into an interrogation, "Why don't you usually say this? What changed? What does this mean?" You'll trigger their survival mode again. That vulnerable part will retreat. But if you can hold space without demanding more, you give that sentence room to breathe. And when an avoidant feels safe enough to breathe inside a relationship, that's when growth happens. And here's what most people miss. The but in I don't usually say this, but is a soft rebellion. It's a declaration that despite their wiring, despite their discomfort, despite their habit of staying emotionally walled off, they are going to speak anyway. That word signals the start of something new. It might be small. It might come out awkward. It might not sound like a big deal, but it is. Because this is how emotional intimacy is built with someone avoidant, not with intensity, but with consistency, not with fireworks, but with emotional safety. And the sentence you just heard is one of the few sparks that lights that fire. Don't dismiss it. Don't look past it. Don't try to translate it into the language of someone more secure. Hear it for what it is, a real-time confession of effort, care, and connection. From someone who never learned how to say it right, but chose to say it anyway. When an avoidantly attached person says, "I feel safe with you," they are not just sharing a sweet sentiment. They are giving you a coded emotional confession that often carries more weight than the words, "I love you." This statement might seem subtle, even understated, especially if you're used to overt expressions of affection. But for someone who typically shields their inner world with fierce independence, that sentence is monumental. To feel safe is to feel emotionally unguarded. It means their nervous system is no longer scanning for threats. It means their walls, the ones they've spent a lifetime building to protect their vulnerability, are beginning to lower. Not all at once, but enough to let you see a piece of their heart. And that moment, quiet and tender as it may be, is one of the most honest forms of connection they're capable of expressing. Avoidants don't fall in love the way movies teach us. They don't leap headfirst into vulnerability. Don't spill their feelings over candlelit dinners. Don't plan grand romantic gestures to declare their devotion. Their love grows slowly, almost imperceptibly, beneath the surface. It's tested through consistency, through space, through moments of silence that feel heavy and full. When they tell you that they feel safe with you, they are telling you that your presence doesn't activate their alarm bells. They're telling you that with you, they don't feel the need to hide, perform, or self-abandon. And that is everything to someone whose emotional reflex is usually to pull away. "I feel safe with you" is not just a compliment, it's an invitation. It means you're in. You have to understand what safety really means to an avoidant. Safety isn't about comfort in the conventional sense. It's about control. Emotional exposure has always equaled risk to them. Risk of being smothered, risk of being trapped, risk of needing someone and then being hurt or disappointed. Most avoidants learned early on that love came with conditions, or that closeness meant vulnerability without protection. So they adapted. They learned to self-soothe, to detach, to intellectualize. But all of that comes at the cost of connection. And when they begin to associate you with emotional safety, that entire worldview starts to shift. You're no longer a threat. You're not someone they have to escape from. You're someone they can lean toward, even if just an inch at a time. And yet, don't expect this moment to be followed by a cascade of verbal intimacy. The avoidance version of opening up is not loud. It's not fast. It's not even always linear. They may still withdraw. They may still get overwhelmed. They may still test your boundaries just to see if you'll leave. But when they say, "I feel safe with you," what they're really telling you is, "I can be more of myself here. I can rest here. I don't feel like I have to run." That's a massive breakthrough for someone who has lived most of their emotional life on the run. And if you can meet that moment with presence instead of pressure, with understanding instead of expectation, the relationship starts to build roots. Most people expect love to come packaged in big statements, dramatic acts, and constant reassurance. But when you're loving someone with avoidant tendencies, your relationship will be built in these small, almost imperceptible moments of trust. I feel safe with you is not a placeholder for I love you. It is their version of it. It is their way of saying you matter. You're different. I'm beginning to let you see the parts of me I usually hide from everyone, including myself. And for someone who has mastered the art of emotional self-containment, that kind of disclosure is not just brave, it's intimate. It means you've become a space where they don't have to protect themselves all the time. And if you know anything about avoidant attachment, you know that's not just progress, it's profound. There's also another layer to this. When an avoidant says they feel safe with you, they're indirectly telling you that their nervous system has started to recalibrate in your presence. This isn't just emotional, it's biological. Their body, which is usually locked in self-preservation mode, is now slowly shifting toward connection. And that's not because of one moment or one conversation. It's because of your consistency, your grounded energy, your ability to stay calm when they pulled away, your refusal to chase, yet your choice to remain present. All of those things told their subconscious mind that you're not dangerous. You're not going to engulf them or abandon them. You're not going to manipulate them with emotion. That safety, you earned it. They didn't just fall into it, you created it together. When an avoidant says, I thought about you today, it may seem like a simple, passing comment, but beneath those 5 words lies a tidal wave of significance. Avoidantly attached individuals are not naturally expressive when it comes to emotional connection. Their survival mechanism is rooted in distance. Emotional intimacy often feels like a threat to their autonomy, so they've trained themselves, either consciously or unconsciously, to compartmentalize their feelings, their thoughts, and even their attachments. So when someone like that admits, unprompted, that they thought about you, what they're really doing is exposing a part of their internal world, a world they usually guard like a fortress. They are offering you a glimpse behind the curtain, and that tiny sentence becomes a goldmine of emotional insight if you know how to listen to it properly. For most people, saying, I thought about you is ordinary, even expected. In emotionally secure relationships, it's the kind of thing people say all the time without much weight. But for the avoidant, expressing that they thought about you while you were apart is an act of vulnerability. That phrase is not just a recounting of a passing thought. It's a quiet announcement that you've entered their mental space in a way they couldn't block or avoid. And that is a big deal, because one of the most important coping strategies for the avoidant mind is emotional compartmentalization. They separate connection from routine. They divide attachment from functionality. They box love into corners they don't have to look at too often. So when someone breaks through that wall, when a thought of you lingers long enough for them to feel compelled to speak it aloud, it's not just affection, it's the beginning of emotional integration. And the thing about avoidance is that they rarely share those thoughts unless something inside them is softening. That one sentence, I thought about you today, can carry more emotional weight than a dozen grand gestures. It's often said awkwardly, almost like they're not sure what response they'll get. Sometimes it's slipped in at the end of a conversation. Sometimes it shows up in a text, seemingly out of nowhere. But make no mistake, it's never out of nowhere for them. It's always the result of a quiet, internal shift. They felt your presence without your actual presence. And then they chose to acknowledge it. That's not something avoidants do easily, because for them, acknowledgement invites closeness, and closeness can feel unsafe. You also have to consider what they're not saying. When an avoidant says they thought about you, it often means, I missed you, but I don't know how to say that yet. Or, you crossed my mind, and that unsettled me enough to sit with it. They might not be ready to explain what the thought was, or why it mattered, or what feelings it brought up. But the mere fact that they didn't bury the moment and instead offered it to you is a signal that they are beginning to associate you with emotional safety, not emotional chaos. And that's everything, because the avoidant nervous system is tuned to avoid perceived chaos. They don't let people in unless they've proven they're stable, calm, and not going to overwhelm them. If they thought about you and then told you, that means they didn't suppress the feeling. They didn't dismiss it. They didn't distract themselves away from it. They let themselves feel it. And that's where intimacy begins for them. And here's the subtle but powerful truth. Avoidants measure closeness not by how often they see you, but by how much of their inner space they allow you to occupy. They won't say, "I miss you so much it hurts," but they will say, "I thought about you today." They won't gush about your importance, but they'll let you know you crossed their mind while they were walking into work or folding laundry or driving home in silence. And that one moment of emotional interruption, where you entered a space they usually reserve only for themselves, is sacred. It's a sign that your connection is not just something they tolerate. It's something that's growing, quietly, carefully, but unmistakably. The avoidant mind doesn't default to longing. It doesn't default to fantasy or craving closeness. So if you're showing up in their thoughts uninvited and they admit it, that means they're no longer trying to keep you in a separate emotional box. That means your presence has made an imprint that their internal defenses can't erase. And that's what makes that sentence so rare, so golden, so worth pausing over. Because "I thought about you today" is not small talk. It's a confession dressed up like casual conversation. And if you meet it with awareness, if you recognize what's underneath, you'll start to see how love grows inside people who've never had the language for it. When an avoidant person says, "I don't want to lose this," you need to understand that you're witnessing a crack in the very foundation of how they've operated emotionally, maybe for their entire life. This sentence, simple, almost casual to the untrained ear, is actually one of the most raw and revealing truths they can offer. Avoidants don't usually declare value out loud. They don't talk in terms of fear of loss or emotional stakes. Their entire operating system is built on maintaining independence, minimizing needs, and controlling emotional exposure. So when they look you in the eye, or even send a hesitant text that says, "I don't want to lose this," you are not just hearing a phrase. You are hearing an alarm going off inside their own defenses. You're hearing the sound of fear being overridden by meaning, because for the first time, something, you, has become more important than their instinct to protect themselves from closeness. To grasp the weight of this, you need to remember that avoidant attachment is rooted in a core belief that closeness equals danger. Somewhere in their developmental story, they learned that needing someone leads to disappointment, suffocation, or rejection. They adapted by becoming hyper-independent, self-soothing, emotionally closed off. They learned to rely on themselves, to meet their own needs, to keep people at arm's length. Closeness felt like losing control. Love felt like a setup. So they mastered the art of detachment, not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much and have no idea how to process it without triggering fear. That's why "I don't want to lose this" matters so much. That sentence breaks the contract they made with themselves to always prioritize safety over vulnerability. They don't say this easily. In fact, they may not even say it directly. It might slip out in moments of quiet honesty, moments where their armor feels too heavy to carry for one more day. You might hear it during a pause after an argument. You might hear it when you're pulling away and they suddenly stop you. You might hear it wrapped in uncertainty, like they're trying to figure out if what they feel is valid. But underneath all of it is one very clear message. You've become something I'm not willing to risk losing. That's huge. For someone who normally copes by retreating, by minimizing, by pretending it doesn't matter, this is them telling you it does matter. And not just a little, enough to make them face one of their biggest fears, emotional dependency. And dependency doesn't mean neediness in the way people use it casually. It means letting someone in. It means letting someone have emotional influence over you. It means allowing another person to impact your inner world. And that is terrifying to someone avoidant, because once someone is inside, they have the power to hurt, to overwhelm, to leave. So when they say, I don't want to lose this, it means they are choosing connection despite that fear. It means they're acknowledging that your presence brings something into their life that they cannot replicate on their own. It means they've reached a point where the thought of losing the relationship is more distressing than the fear of vulnerability that's been running their life in the background for years. What's also critical to understand is that this sentence may be the closest thing you get to a love declaration for a while. Avoidants rarely say, I love you with ease. They don't talk about forever. They may not even be comfortable with terms like soulmates or deep emotional bonding. But this sentence, this is their version of love. This is their way of saying, you matter to me. I'm attached to you. I'm afraid of what it would feel like if you weren't here anymore. It's coded language, yes, but it's real. It's honest, and it's not performative. They're not saying it for reassurance or to manipulate the moment. They're saying it because it leaked out of their tightly held heart. So when you hear this phrase, meet it with presence. Don't rush past it. Don't try to force it into a bigger emotional display. Don't pressure them for more clarity than they're ready to give. Just hear it. Let it land. Because if you respond with calm steadiness, if you don't punish the vulnerability, if you honor it rather than dissect it, you'll be showing them something their nervous system never learned growing up, that safety and love can exist in the same space. That closeness doesn't have to mean losing yourself. That admitting fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you brave. And that expressing the desire to keep someone close is not a threat to your independence. It's an expression of your humanity. When an avoidant person looks at you and says, you make me want to be better, you are not hearing a cliche. You are witnessing a moment of emotional resurrection. That sentence doesn't come from the surface of them. It comes from the hidden, tender, long-forgotten part they rarely let anyone see, their inner child. The version of them that once craved love, connection, approval, and emotional closeness, but learned to stop reaching for it because it hurt too much. When they say you make them want to be better, it's not about performance. It's not about becoming more successful, more charming, more impressive for you. It's about wanting to become someone worthy of being loved, safe to be loved. And for an avoidant, that is an enormous psychological shift. Avoidants don't wake up one day and decide to open their heart. Their self-protective behavior isn't a personality quirk. It's a deep survival strategy developed through years of emotional scarcity or neglect. Many of them grew up in homes where vulnerability wasn't modeled, where independence was praised while emotional needs were dismissed, where expressing sadness, fear, or neediness led to shame, withdrawal, or punishment. So they shut that part of themselves off. They learned to cope by minimizing their needs and maximizing their control. They didn't stop feeling, they just stopped showing. But the feelings never disappeared. They just got buried beneath layers of detachment, intellectualization, sarcasm, or silence. And sometimes they get so good at being fine on their own, they forget that they ever wanted to be held at all. Then you walk into their life, not perfect, not forceful, but present, steady, emotionally real. You see through their distance without trying to fix them. You don't chase, but you also don't flinch when they push. You set boundaries without weaponizing them. You love them in a way that doesn't try to own them, only reflect who they are. And that quiet presence starts to chip away at their armor. You don't even realize it, but you're awakening parts of them that have been asleep for years, sometimes decades. And one day they blurt it out, or whisper it gently, or say it with fear in their throat. You make me want to be better. And what they're really saying is, Something in you reminds me of who I used to wish I could be before I gave up. That sentence is a soul confession, because when they speak those words, they are acknowledging something they don't usually admit, not even to themselves, that they are not living from their full emotional self, that they've been surviving, not thriving, that they've been functioning, not connecting, and something about being around you has made them want to re-engage with life again from a softer, more open, more honest place. It's not about being better for you. It's about becoming better because of you. You didn't demand a change. You didn't give them an ultimatum. You simply stood there grounded in your truth, unshaken by their hot and cold, firm in your love, but rooted in your own self-worth. And that balance, the paradox of availability and self-respect, is what unlocks the hidden room inside an avoidant heart. But don't confuse that sentence with a promise. It's not a commitment to immediate transformation. It's not a guarantee that all the walls are coming down tomorrow. It's not an invitation for you to become their therapist or their savior. What it is a rare moment of self-awareness. It means the ice is melting. It means their capacity for connection is expanding. It means the part of them that stopped growing emotionally when they were 10 years old is finally peeking out from behind the curtain, asking quietly, "Is it safe to come back now?" And if you can hear that sentence through that lens, if you can understand it as a signal of emotional awakening instead of a milestone of maturity, you'll respond in a way that supports healing rather than trying to rush it. Because the avoidant doesn't need you to fix them. They don't need you to push them or coach them or demand that they speed up their emotional growth. What they need is space to keep unraveling and the trust that you'll keep being who you are, not as a reward for their progress, but as a reflection of your own truth. If you try to grip too tightly after hearing that sentence, if you interpret it as a cue to intensify emotional closeness, they might recoil. But if you let the moment breathe, if you honor it for the breakthrough it is without needing more from it, you build the very kind of emotional environment that nurtures the exact growth they're reaching toward. So when an avoidant says, "You make me want to be better," they are offering a glimpse into their emotional underground. They are handing you a piece of their buried hope, their forgotten longing, their dormant capacity for intimacy. You've reached their inner child, not by rescuing it, but by recognizing it. And that sentence, spoken in their own unpolished language, is the beginning of something deeper than romantic love. It's the beginning of self-reclamation through connection. When an avoidant person says, "This is hard for me, but I'm trying," they are not making excuses. They are not buying time. They are doing something far more courageous than it appears. They are acknowledging their own emotional limitations while choosing to grow beyond them anyway. That sentence might seem small, even insufficient to someone who's been craving more closeness, more clarity, more consistency. But if you understand avoidant attachment, if you've seen firsthand how fiercely it resists vulnerability, you'll recognize that those words are a sign of profound effort. Avoidants don't like admitting struggle. Their entire nervous system is wired to project competence, self-sufficiency, and emotional control. To say something is hard is to risk exposure. To say they're trying is to take ownership of progress. And both are rare, vulnerable acts that signal not only awareness, but investment. Avoidant individuals grow up internalizing the belief that their emotions are either too much, unimportant, or dangerous to express. Maybe their caregivers ignored them when they were in distress. Maybe affection was conditional. Maybe vulnerability in their early environment was met with punishment, ridicule, or abandonment. Whatever the root cause, the resulting behavior is nearly always the same. Emotional detachment becomes their armor. They protect their softest parts with silence, avoidance, intellectualization, or withdrawal. They don't reach out when they're hurting. They don't say what they feel. They don't ask for help, even when they need it most. So when someone like that looks at you and says, "This is hard for me," they're breaking their own survival code. They are allowing you to witness the very thing they've been taught to hide. But it's the second half of that sentence that reveals the deeper truth. But I'm trying. That's the breakthrough. That's the moment that matters, because now they're not just acknowledging the difficulty. They're making a conscious decision to show up in it, to work through it, to stay in the discomfort rather than escape it. And they're only doing that because you've created a relationship where that effort doesn't feel threatening. You've become a safe container, not through perfection, but through consistency, through showing up without chasing, through expressing your needs without attacking, through holding your own emotional center when they pulled back or got overwhelmed. You didn't make love conditional on their emotional performance. And that's what makes them feel like they can keep trying. For the avoidant, trying does not look like dramatic transformation. It looks like tiny shifts. It looks like answering the phone even when they're flooded with anxiety. It looks like leaning in after an argument instead of ghosting for 3 days. It looks like saying, "I don't know what I'm feeling, but I want to figure it out." That's trying. That's growth. That's them pushing against the weight of a lifetime of emotional habits that told them it was safer to retreat than to reveal. When they tell you they're trying, they are not promising to be fixed. They are not saying they've arrived. They are letting you in on the fact that they're evolving, even if slowly, even if messily. And that evolution was sparked by you, not because you demanded it, but because you invited it, with your presence, your boundaries, your patience, and your refusal to abandon yourself. Trying for the avoidant is terrifying. It requires effort where there used to be escape routes. It requires slowing down instead of shutting down. It means feeling things that used to trigger panic or shame. It's physically exhausting to someone who's spent decades convincing themselves they don't need anyone. So when they admit, "This is hard for me," that's their truth. And when they follow it with, "But I'm trying," that's their hope. Hope that the relationship is a different kind of space. Hope that maybe this time love won't cost them their autonomy. Hope that maybe for once it's safe to stretch beyond their limits without being punished for not getting it right the first time. Your role in that moment isn't to fix it or rush it or make it more comfortable. Your role is to witness it, to hear the weight behind their words, to acknowledge the labor of growth without needing more than what they're giving in that moment. Because the second they feel like trying isn't enough, they'll retreat again. But if you can hold the space with respect, with patience, with your own grounded truth intact, you reinforce that trying is valid, that they're allowed to be in progress. That intimacy is not about perfection, it's about presence. And in that space, where effort is honored and growth is not demanded but welcomed, something beautiful begins to unfold inside them. A new association between love and safety, between connection and peace, between trying and being enough. So here's the truth. If an avoidant says any of these things to you, listen, not with your ears, but with your awareness. These aren't just words. They are acts of courage. Little slips of the soul. The avoidant won't shout it from rooftops, but if they say this, you are not just a partner. You are the exception. You're the one who got through. And the question now isn't, are they serious about you? The real question is, are you grounded enough to receive that kind of love without doubting it? Because once they say it, the game has already changed.